Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 31 of the Fourth String Sports Podcast. I am your host, Brady, with my co-hosts Mitch and Skyler, and our special guest coming back for the NBA playoff situation here, Mr. TJ Foffel. Gentlemen, how are we all doing tonight?
Awesome, man. We got playoffs, and then we got TJ.
It's a win-win in my book.
Yeah.
We're doing pretty good here.
Well, we're going to talk about that here. We're going to break down all of Game 1 of the NBA playoffs here with the exception of Blazers-Lakers. We'll be checking in on that. They're happening right now as we record. Just threw my pen across the room. So we're going to go into some blatant overreactions. We're going to talk about the games themselves. We're also going to break down the NFL injury report. We've got our what's list where we're breaking down the top 5 most memorable championships that we've watched. And then we're going to talk – we got our what a putts, we've got our hero, and we have our main entree tonight, which is the Seattle Seahawks. We've only got 3 teams left on our NFL list: Tampa, Tennessee, and the Washington no-names.
It's pronounced Tampa.
The Tampa Bay Gronkaneers. And then after that, I mean, football is about a month away now. Professional football is. College football, fingers crossed, is about a month away. By then, we'll be right in the heart of, probably about the conference finals, getting ready for the NBA finals here. And baseball will be wrapping up as well. We haven't touched much on baseball. We're going to wait a little bit till we get a little bit more clear pictures to the playoffs before we start to touch on those.
And the Cardinals stop fucking things up.
Yeah, and the Cardinals stop fucking things up when the Phillies
People
and
stop
the
shitting on
Marlins.
Tatis for being awesome.
Yeah, hey, stop.
Yeah.
He just hits grand slams and people are mad.
Supporting him.
So we got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. We appreciate everybody for listening. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Spotify, Reddit, SoundCloud, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. And email us, fourthstringsp@gmail.com. That's fourthstringsp@gmail.com. So with that being said, gentlemen, before we break down each game individually, what are just some of our opening thoughts on Game 1 of the NBA playoffs here? And we'll even include that play-in game where the Blazers beat the Grizzlies to get into the 8th seed.
Dude, fuck the refs. The Mavs should have won. They should be 1-0 right now. They're doing everything and anything they can to get Lakers-Clippers series somehow, some way.
Did you see the Adam Silver thing where it's the meme of him, like it's like super cold or whatever, and he's got his cell phone. He's like, yeah, that's 7-3 Latvian. I want him out of the game. And
No, I mean, I agree with everybody else when they say that the first flagrant was bullshit. The second one, he was like, I can't remember who said it, but I think it was the ref guy, the rules analyst they have for ESPN. He came in and he was like, Porzingis was going there. He wasn't going in there to stop shit. He was going in there to keep shit going that second time. So I mean that second flagrant definitely deserved it, but I agree with everybody else. If Porzingis was still in, I think it would have been much harder for the Clippers to win that game.
I don't think that second flagrant happens if that first one is just that's just not something that needed to be called at all. There's just no physicality in the NBA as it was 10 years ago. You tap somebody and something's wrong, and then all of a sudden you say something the ref doesn't like, and that's a T, or that's a flagrant, or it's kind of soft.
It is, and I go to especially the flopping. I mean, watching the Bucks game today, there was a few prime examples, especially on the Magic side. The one that stands out is where Middleton's coming around on a screen and he runs into Fournier, barely runs into him, and Fournier throws himself across the court. And that's where it's like when you hear guys like Shaq say I could dominate this league. Well, actually, he wouldn't. He'd get called for flagrants all the time because of the way that the NBA is built now. Now, I don't have a problem with the play style itself, but I agree with you, TJ. If that first one should have never been called, and if that first one doesn't get called, the second one doesn't really matter. And the Clippers absolutely then lose that game. I mean, I think Porzingis is the difference. But let's give a shout-out to just a couple of names: Jamal Murray, Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic, and Donovan Mitchell. I mean, 4 players score more than 30 points, all under the age of 25 in the playoffs. First time that's ever happened in NBA history. LeBron said a really interesting thing. He's like, hey, when I'm gone, the league is in good hands, and it really is. I mean, that Utah-Denver game was a lot better than I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Because with the amount of guys Utah was down, I was like, it's going to take a Herculean effort from Donovan Mitchell just to even keep that game entertaining. And then he did it, 57 points, he was a force. He was hitting the three-pointer really well. He was forcing fouls. He was making shots. And Denver just didn't look solid really until that fourth quarter. Although my favorite line was like halfway through the third when they're turning the ball over and they're like, it looks like an LA Fitness gym at 3 a.m. because that like 6-minute period where nobody could get a shot to go in and they're just basically whipping the ball around the court was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. It looked like some Waukesha South basketball out there. But
my name's in the record, but somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's okay, audience. I feel left out too.
But I also want to talk about that play-in game because we all picked Portland to win, but Memphis put up a hell of a fight and a lot more of a fight than I really expected them to. Valanciunas was dominant, especially in that first half. So when we talk about like up and coming teams here, let's compare, right? Nobody thought Memphis should be in the play-in because of how poorly they did in the bubble, and everybody was really high on the Suns. So which team do you feel is better suited going forward, Memphis or Phoenix?
I would say Memphis. I feel like they have a core going. They have Ja at the point guard, Jaren Jackson as their big. They just need a couple more pieces, and I think they'll be competing. And I just feel like Phoenix is like really lost right now. I mean, Devin Booker, their star, obviously, but Ayton, I don't think has been worthy of the number one overall. And besides those two, they really don't have anything. And I just don't think they know what to do. So I would bet on Memphis having a brighter future than the Suns right now.
Yeah, I'd actually disagree because Aiden's been doing pretty well, honestly.
I mean in the bubble, but not
in
really
the bubble. Well, in the
outside
bubble, what I'll also say is like Aiton's an old school big. He isn't there to put up points. He's there to guard the paint for the most part. And if I have Devin Booker and who's the guy from North
Ricky
Carolina?
Rubio?
No, the guy from North Carolina that totally went off in the bubble.
Cameron Johnston?
Cameron Johnson and the guys that they had that were scoring points, like DeAndre Ayton, he's there to stop people he's there to protect the rim. I think that the Suns right now, Devin Booker is probably one of the better up and coming players in this league. And I disagree with Draymond. I mean, Draymond said he needs to request a trade. If he did, whoever got him would immediately be better. But the Suns aren't going to let go of him. They're going to build around him, and I think that the Suns are really good. I think both teams are up-and-coming teams. But if the Suns keep playing the way that they've been playing and Monty Williams keeps putting them in the right track, this is going to be a dangerous Suns team.
I do think both teams are on the rise, but I agree with Mitch. I think Memphis is just the better team overall just because of the fact that they're already building around Morant, whereas in Phoenix they've been trying to build around Booker for years now and they still can't figure it out. He's still carrying that team. And I don't think he's ever going to get traded off that team. I think he's going to leave regardless of who they put around him. They can make the playoffs in 3 years, but I still think he's going to leave. So just with Valanciunas, even though he's getting up there in age now, he's still able to put up pretty decent numbers being a supportive big man for Morant and all that. And the fact that, Morant is going to be a top 10 player in this league, if not already, in the near future. And he's just going to be dominant, and they're just going to keep building around him. I don't think there's ever going to be a point where they're going to stop and just be complacent with what they got or just try to scrap everything. So I think Memphis overall just is better, even though both teams looked really good in the bubble.
Yeah, I mean, and we touched on it in the last episode where, we talked about Phoenix probably should have been in. They were on an 8-0 run, but they started 5-2, finished 8-0, and were like 23-37 in the middle there. Like outside of the 5-2 start and in the bubble, they never won more than 3 games in a row in that whole stretch. But they had losses of 3 or more games in a row, like 4 different times, including losing 8 straight games. With Memphis, like we saw clear growth this year, like pretty much the same record from last year based off projections and stuff. But this Memphis team looked a lot more put together post Mike Conley being out and Ja Morant being in. I would definitely take Memphis. I think that they're a younger team. I think they're probably a better coach team. I don't think the Memphis coach gets a lot of credit. I really thought when the Marc Gasol, Jonas Valanciunas trade happened, I thought Memphis won that trade because I didn't think Gasol was going to have the resurgence he did, and props to him for it. So the pieces are definitely there in Memphis. I like Memphis a little bit more, and I also like the fact that when you look at it, like Memphis gets to play teams like the Pelicans 5 times a year. They get to play teams like the Spurs, who look like they're going to have to do a rebuild for the first time in 25 years, which, again, RIP the Spurs playoff run. That kind of stuff. Like, they get to play them 5 times a year. And, yeah, they still got to play teams like Phoenix 4 times a year and stuff. But I feel like Phoenix runs the risk of flatlining the way that this team kind of consistently does, while Memphis definitely feels like an ascender with that. So let's break down just some other scores here. Toronto beats the Nets 134-110. Now, that score is really not – it doesn't clarify that game very well because Brooklyn fought back to get into that game. And that game was within, I believe, 8 points with about 8 minutes left in the game. And eventually Toronto just took over. But I was very surprised by Brooklyn's performance in that one. Again, Clippers beat the Mavs 118-110. Boston over Philadelphia 109-101. Houston just beat Oklahoma City 123-108. Miami takes game 1 in a highly anticipated series against Indiana 113-101. And Orlando beat Milwaukee first time a 1 seed, beat an 8 seed in the first game of the playoffs since 2017, 122-110. So let's just go into some blatant overreactions here. So let's start off with our hometown Bucks here. Guys, are we worried after game 1? I mean, Middleton looked bad. Bledsoe couldn't hit a 3. The bench got outperformed. Giannis still put up 30 points and I think 17 rebounds. But the effort just wasn't there from this team. Is this something we should be worried about? Should Coach Budenholzer maybe get his head out of his ass and figure out how to get this team motivated? Or what's the situation?
Nah, I'm not really worried at all. You alluded to in our group chat before this that, this is how we started off against the Boston Celtics. We lost that first game. Everybody wrote us off. Paul Pierce wrote us off and looks like an idiot now. I trust
he never stopped looking like an idiot. Ever since he shat his pants in the NBA Finals, He never stopped looking like an idiot.
But I trust that Coach Bud's going to make the right adjustments. I'd be a little more worried if Giannis didn't perform the way that he did, but he was the only one that really showed up in my eyes, so I'm not too worried. And I think, these guys are like, okay, I know what I need to do. I know what adjustments to make, and I think we'll see the real Milwaukee Bucks on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not worried about the Bucks. I do think that if they keep letting Vucevic shoot the way that they did today, it's cause for some disturbance. But do I believe Vucevic can consistently go 5 from 8 from the 3-point line? I don't know. I also Fournier not playing the way he should have for 3 quarters, and they still won by 12 is what I would also say a cause for concern. And I mean, Aaron Gordon could be back in the series. And I mean, like we talked about it a little bit, that could change some things. Ennis then wouldn't be playing 30 plus minutes a game, but he would still be in there. So, I mean, either way, I think that Orlando has the pieces to beat them, but Milwaukee's just a better team. Like we said, Middleton's not going to play as badly as he did today. Bledsoe's not going to play as badly as he did today.
Well, hold on that one, because Bledsoe may play as badly as he did. He's
not a playoff guy.
He doesn't show up in the playoffs.
Well, but the thing is the thing that a lot of people like about this Bucks team is that they're a deep team. They have a lot of players that can either put up points or can play defensively. And the bench today, I think, is actually what let you guys down more than anything, because Orlando's bench outscored you. And that's bad, because when Giannis isn't on the court, you guys need to be playing. The bench needs to be playing well, and that just wasn't the case today. Again, there's the right pieces for Orlando to maybe surprise a couple people, but I think maybe they can win one more game. But this is Milwaukee's to lose.
Yeah.
Before TJ goes, I just saw a really funny tweet. So somebody tweeted, the NBA champions last year lost to the Magic in their first playoff game. Bucks are playing chess, not checkers.
I do have a question here. Does anyone know what happened to Ilyasova, why he didn't play today?
Ilyasova?
Let me check it out.
I didn't see anything on Bucks Twitter or anything.
So TJ, if you want to get to, because I was just thinking, like, he's a huge piece in that team. Like, he doesn't get massive minutes, but defensively he's really good, and offensively he can hit from anywhere. So TJ, what are your kind of reactions here? What's your overreaction? What's your underreaction type thing to that game 1?
Well, earlier in the day, I was texting Mitch about it. I was definitely tweaking a lot the fact that we looked like complete garbage except for Giannis, which going back to what Skylar said about the depth of the Bucks, though, Brooke had 5 points, Dante had 3, and Pat had 3. Like, they combined for 11 points. I don't remember that ever happening since all 3 of those guys have been in Milwaukee. So I think I think it's just game 1 jitters. The fact that it's a new atmosphere, not playing in front of the home crowd, not playing for playoff atmosphere. I know they haven't been playing in Milwaukee for a while now, but playoff talk, they haven't. Milwaukee, when it comes to the playoff time, it gets loud in there. Even 2 years ago when I was up there for the Bucks Celtics game 5, you couldn't hear people next to you up in the rafters. So I think being in that neutral site, it doesn't give a team that adrenaline or that advantage. But I'm not worried about Thursday at all. I think Dante is going to come back, and regardless of how Eric does all the time, he's not consistent in playoffs at all. But I know Dante. I love Dante. He's probably he's my second favorite Buck, so I know he's going to pick it up. Pat is somebody that works just as hard as Giannis. He's in there at the same time early in the morning and stuff. So, Pat's going to come back. And Brooke, he can be streaky, but his defense has just been such a boost this year that it's okay if he has off games like this, as long as he plays defensively well with the blocks that he's been doing and the presence down low. But I'm not worried at all.
I'm not worried about the series as much. I mean, there's no real reason the Bucks should drop another one. I think a large part of it was effort. I don't know if this team just expected the Magic to lay over and die or what. But I didn't see energy from this team in the first half. And really, I didn't even see it that much in the second half until it got down into crunch time. I didn't like what I was hearing from Budenholzer. I didn't like that he didn't have any energy. He's like, okay, guys, we know, we got to stop with the letting them drive and then pass out. We know, that was his tone, and I hated listening to it. I definitely think not playing in Milwaukee is a huge factor, and even the Magic head coach said it. He's like, if there's one advantage to the bubble, it's that we don't got to go to Milwaukee, which is a big thing. But, I mean, Middleton, 2 of 6 from the three-point line. Bledsoe, 1 of 5. Lopez, 0 of 4. Giannis, 3 of 7. There's no reason Giannis should be taking 7 3-point shots. I get he's working on it. There's no reason for that. The Magic did a really good job of building that wall to keep Giannis from driving. What I'm more worried about is, the Magic, 16 of 41 from the three-point line. Not great, 39%, but still good enough. We know who the Bucks are going to have to play when they move on. It's most likely going to be the Heat, and then most likely going to be the Raptors. And one of those two teams do really, really well, shoot the 3 ball.
Well, and
even with the Bucks having, as Skylar likes to point out, the Bucks have the worst perimeter defense.
Because they do.
This team, and yeah, you're right. Statistically, they do. Absolutely. This team right now, if the Magic can exploit this, is going to run into some real issues round 2, round 3 of these playoffs, long before they even get the chance to play a team like the Lakers or the Clippers or whoever might represent the West. So that's more what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the series, but I'm worried about looking forward. But again, I had a lot of the same gut reactions after game 1 of the semis against the Celtics,
Well, and I'll even say this. If this is how lethargically they're playing and how lethargically they're being coached right now, guess what? The 3 teams that they're most likely to face in the next couple of rounds, Heat, Celtics, Raptors. Those are the 3 teams we agree are most likely could be playing at this point. Those 3 teams never take a break. Those 3 teams are always going hard. Specifically the Raptors, I'm thinking of. Those guys never, ever take a break, and that's part of the reason why they won a championship last year. So, they like you saw it against the Nets. They weren't like, we're going to play the Nets, so it's the guaranteed win. No, they went out there, and they made sure that they put the Nets in their place. And that's what's going to happen. If Milwaukee gives any of the teams, let's say they do beat Magic, because they haven't yet. They beat the Magic, and they move on to the next round. If they give any of those 3 teams even a little bit of leeway, just a little bit of blood, those 3 teams will take advantage of it, because all 3 of those teams they play 110% every single game. So it's worrying.
You're right. And the thing that I'll just point out is that with Bucks fans, I definitely think there's some semblance of us that should be worried. But at the same time, all those teams you mentioned would have to beat the Bucks 4 times. And
True.
Are we expecting Middleton especially, he's going to be the key here, Middleton to not play as well as he did. Mitch, were you able to figure out what happened to Ilyasova today?
Yeah, Ilyasova has a sprained elbow that he got in the final seeding game.
Any timetable on his return?
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to just a couple other games here. I mean, Miami, Indiana, man, that game was fun to watch. Miami, Indiana was great. Oladipo had a scratched eye, had to take it easy. Even with Sabonis being out, I mean, the Pacers kept it really competitive. I thought T.J. Warren played really well. Just simple mistakes from a young team like Indiana, but Miami looks tough. And I'd be worried to face really either team if you're a Bucks fan in the next round, but especially the Heat. What were your guys' thoughts on that game that happened just a little bit earlier today?
Yeah, the Heat look as advertised. Jimmy Butler's Jimmy Butler. Tyler Hero was making some good shots. Bam's, with that defense and stuff. I think the Pacers did a pretty good job of playing against them, with Sabonis out, and I think that's a huge blow to them, but they did pretty well, even though Oladipo had to leave, and TJ Warden's still playing up to how he's been in the bubble. So I think it's still going to be a great matchup, and I don't think it's going to be overwhelming either way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like seeing Jimmy Butler being able to lead a team by himself. It's kind of refreshing almost not having another big head to, he's not bumping heads with any other huge personality like an Embiid or a Karl Anthony Towns. But I mean, again, I also think that this, again, it's every game one. Sometimes it's exactly how the series is going to go, and sometimes it's a little like with the Bucks. It's are we really expecting the Bucks to get blown out by 12 every night? No. So I mean, I expect the series to be a little bit closer, but I mean, they won by 12, and Duncan Robinson had 6 points. Andre Iguodala only had 4. So I mean, if this shows that those two guys specifically we know they can turn it on later. I mean, Andre Iguodala is a veteran of the postseason. Golden State Warriors out. He's probably the most seasoned veteran in the postseason.
He won Finals MVP for guarding LeBron in the 2015 Finals or something like that.
Their first Finals, yeah, the Warriors' first win. So I mean, this is. I still think I predicted the Heat winning, didn't I? At 7.
Yeah, I was the only one who picked the Pacers, and now I'm probably going to change that. So.
But I mean, I just want the Heat. If the Heat keep playing consistently, which we know that they are capable of doing, I think that they got this, but I still think it can go 6 or 7 games.
TJ, any thoughts on that Pacers Heat game?
I think Miami's a lot scarier than people are giving them credit for. I think they just the general media focuses on Jimmy Butler and his intensity and his leadership, but you got Duncan Robinson, hometown hero, Tyler Hero. It's just a bunch of shooters, and then you got what's his name, Bam Adebayo down low, just an absolute athletic freak he's just insanely athletic, and he's just a huge presence down there. And so I think their biggest thing is their role players, their bench players. I think that's what kind of lets them down towards the end of the games when guys like Jimmy and Tyler and Duncan are getting exhausted. They don't have as much depth, but Jimmy kind of pushes them all to be so intense. And then with Indiana losing Oladipo through the game, that hurts. But you still got T.J. Warren, you still got Sabonis, you still got all these key parts out there. So I think even though Miami looked not completely, but they looked pretty dominant throughout the whole game, just the intensity was on their side. I think Indiana's going to come back and want to just punch right back at them. It's going to be this was my second favorite series to watch so far, behind the Trailblazers one.
Yeah, so let's move on here really quick, and let's do a quick update. Portland on top of the Lakers, 26-15 as of right now. Anthony Davis shooting an abysmal 1 of 7 from the field so far today. LeBron 2 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. So we'll keep updates on that as we go about. So now going forward here through the rest of this first round, what playoff series to you is going to be the most exciting to watch? For me, it's a toss-up between Dallas Clippers and Utah Denver, if we can get a couple more of those Jazz Nuggets games. But I think Dallas Clippers is going to be a slug match through the rest of this first round, and I'm so excited to watch it play out.
Oh yeah, I'm totally with you. I think Mavs Clippers is the most exciting right now. We knew it was going to be a good matchup, but after what happened in the first game, I think it's going to be very testy the next couple games, and I'm super excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Mavs Clippers, but I'll also go 76ers Celtics because I mean with Gordon Hayward getting out for at least a month is why, and I mean he's got the birth of his child somewhere in between there too. When is he coming back? Are the Celtics going to be able to still score like they did? I'm pretty positive that they will be. But Embiid still dominated. There were times where he just threw Tice and Jaylen Brown around down low. They seem to have figured it out a little bit, but I mean, again, this is Celtics and 76ers absolutely hate each other, and they've met more in the postseason than any other two teams. So that's going to be interesting. I agree with you guys in Mavericks, Clippers. I'll also throw out the Heat Pacers because Jimmy Butler and TJ Warren. I love that rivalry, and I don't think that the Pacers again are going to go out without a fight. I still think the Heat are going to win, but that's just a fun duo to see face each other.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're a Milwaukee fan, you want to see the Heat and the Pacers slug it out as much as you can because now you're going to have to play a Game 5 no matter what. TJ, what about you?
I think as a Bucks fan, the most interesting series is the Celtics Sixers, just because now with Gordon Hayward going out 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle sprain, that's a key part of the Celtics core. And so now there's more pressure going to have to go on Tatum and Brown to carry the team even more, even though Marcus Smart has actually picked it up a bit in the bubble. I still think Tatum and Brown are going to have to even go to the next level without Hayward. But my favorite series to watch is the Trailblazers Lakers, just because I'm one of the few people in the world who is rooting for Portland to win this. I think they
we
can
all are
liar.
too. You
Liar.
have
I think all
everybody
four
on
of
this
us
show.
are, yeah.
Liar.
Thank God.
Liar.
Let the yellow empire fall.
Wow,
But
abandoning your boy to LeBron?
Kobe's not top 10.
We're not doing this again. I will get my Kobe shirt.
Not on this show, you won't.
But I'm really rooting for Portland to upset the Lakers, not just because LeBron, my boy, but just because I just think the Lakers have gotten such a unneeded amount of attention compared to other teams. Like Milwaukee only gets media attention when something something bad happens. But you look at the Lakers and LeBron's got a gray beard. AD looks like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Ooh, they're deadly. They're going to win it all now. Like, I like the storyline of they're going to win it for Kobe. I think it's just a good story, but I want Portland to win that so bad.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes to small market, big market, where I saw a thing where the Bucks won 56 games this year, the Bulls won 22, and yet on NBC Sports there was I think the Bulls got an average of like 4 more minutes a night than the Bucks did in terms of like radio talking, because Chicago is a big market. So no, I mean, I totally agree with you. I want Portland to win. I love the underdog. I love the little guy. They're winning right now, and hopefully by the end of the episode, we'll have an update on that one.
Let's get one side of the ring.
Well, I think that's again another reason why, like as a Boston fan, why Boston hates LA so much. Because in all due respect, Boston is considered a small market because it's not a big market. It feels like a big market because it has a history of having very competitive sports teams, especially in the last 20 some years. But I think that's personally why I love Boston versus LA whenever it happens, or any like Milwaukee or versus Chicago or any of those small markets versus big markets, because it's like a bunch of, like, we're all blue collar people. We all are from the Midwest. We all appreciate hard work, and we don't like the fact that New York and LA get as much attention as they do when the last specifically 20 years, those teams really haven't deserved it. So, I mean that's what makes rooting for like a Boston, even though they have a history of succeeding, or rooting for a Milwaukee, or like a Tennessee, is just great because they're underdogs, and both as a small market and as just historically haven't been the best.
Yeah, and
Dame
sometimes
Dame
this,
deserves a ring.
he does. He definitely does.
Portland deserves a
bad.
ring at this point. I'm sorry, Portland
True.
as a city deserves a ring.
And then sometimes you get the small market team who plays the big market team in the conference finals, like the Bucks did against the 76ers, and the refs blow it. And that led just so that Allen Iverson could play Kobe. And if you don't believe that, well, then you're fucking blind. So anyway, let's move on here. We'll keep you guys updated on the Portland situation. Let's just run really quickly through some NFL injuries. There were some really big ones that happened. It always happens. First couple of days of training camp, some guy goes out with a massive injury. He's going to be down for a while. Just to name a few here, we know Trey Wayans for the Bengals is going to be out for a significant amount of time. The corner they signed, who we're all pretty high on, Gerald McCoy, the defensive lineman that the Cowboys signed, he's going to be out for the season with a torn pectoral. There's a couple others. Anything that kind of stands out to you guys?
I think the two that you mentioned are probably the biggest, starting with Gerald McCoy. I mean, with him being out for the full season, right now their only defensive tackle I can name is Don Terry Poe.
Don't they still have Lael Collins? I think
he's an offensive tackle, bro.
Is it? Or then is it Malik Collins?
You're thinking of Malik Collins, and he went to the Raiders.
He went to the Raiders.
Left. Okay, he went to the Raiders.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, he's got nobody.
Yeah, so they're pretty weak in the inside and defensive line. So the only person I could think of they could replace him with is Timmy Jernigan, who's still on the market, but whatever. And then Trey Wayans, I think, hurts Cincy just because they're really weak at the corner position. Right now, their number one corner is probably William Jackson III or Mackenzie Alexander, but besides those two, there's really nothing. So I think that could really hurt a Cincy team that's trying to, rise above where they've been the past 20 years.
You're just happy that Trey Wayans went out because it takes everything away from me and Brady.
No, he's not. He's from Kenosha. He's a Wisconsin boy.
Yeah, he is.
No, but
he actually played with Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, he played with Melvin Gordon at high school.
But he went to Michigan State, so fuck that guy.
No, I'm just saying that you don't like him because both me and Brady said that the Bengals are going to beat the Chargers, and you were just like, now with what secondary? I'm sorry.
Yeah, but now Melvin Ingram is holding out for the Chargers, so it doesn't even matter. Joe Burrow's going to go for 450, 7 touchdowns, rookie quarterback number. He's going to break all the records.
Jerry Tiller is going to step up, man. Notre Dame kid.
Jerry who?
Tiller.
Tillery.
Never heard of
Artillery. Jerry Artillery boy.
But
yeah, like Terry, like how Mitch likes to pronounce it, Terry McLaughlin.
But no. Again, I mean I agree. I think Trey Wayans is a loss for Cincy on what we all agreed was a much improved secondary. I still think Von Bell helps. I still think that Mackenzie Alexander is better than the options they had before. Honestly. So I still think that the secondary is improved. And in my opinion, their defensive line is one of the most underrated defensive lines in the NFL. So in Brady, you said Trey Wayans should be back in the second half of the season.
Yeah, they're not entirely sure. It's a partial tear to the pectoral, which is the shoulder muscle. So it says he's going to miss a significant portion of 2020. They are expecting him back. I believe what I saw was no later than week 12, but it could be earlier than that. It just depends on whether or not they have to actually place him on the injured reserve list.
Okay, it makes sense. But again, I think that we're all expecting there's other reasons why we're high on this Cincy team besides Trey Wayans. And then Gerald McCoy, who the Cowboys released after him tearing his ACL, right?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, after his knee injury. They released him, which I think is kind of a shitty move on the Cowboys' part.
Yep.
It's a Cowboys.
Exactly. But no, I think those two are big. Yeah. And I mean, the Seahawks have a slew of injuries, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we will. The other significant one, Artie Burns, the corner from Pittsburgh that Chicago signed in order to be a replacement for Prince Amukamara, tore ACL, he's gone. So
Instagram's going to be all over.
You know it. So now we're gonna move on to our what's list. So who came up with the topic? Was it Skylar?
I did.
Yeah, all right. So what's our topic, Skylar?
Our topic is top 5 championships So it can be conference or national. In your opinion, it could be a series or just one game of your lifetime. So for me, that's 99 because I'm a baby. So yeah, because I asked the question, I posed the question. Brady is the first to go.
Yep.
So Brady, give me your top 5 championships in your lifetime.
All right, so number 5 on my list breaks the rules a little bit, but I'm going to rationalize it as A, they were fighting for the Paul Bunyan trophy. This is Michigan State, and I'm about to get into it. And B, because Michigan State won this game, they got to go to a Big Ten championship that they eventually won over Iowa. So this
I'll
game,
allow it.
This
I'll
game,
allow it.
Good. Thank you. It's my show, but that's fine. This game is the 2015 Week 7 Michigan State-Michigan matchup. In case you don't remember, it's the blocked punt that broke Jim Harbaugh's heart. Or which Harbaugh is it?
John Harbaugh.
John Harbaugh's heart.
No, it is Jim Harbaugh.
Whatever. Who gives a fuck? Doesn't matter. So this game, I remember watching this. Michigan State won 27-23. It was a last-second play. All Michigan had to do was punt the ball. That's all they had to do, and the game was over. But punter fumbles the snap, gets blocked, ran back for a touchdown for Michigan State. It was an awesome game to watch, solely just because of the Michigan Glasses kid who was doing the surrender cobra, became a viral phenomenon. I love that game. That game was one of my favorite games I've ever watched. So that's my number 5 on my list. Number 4 goes to the 2013 Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Ray Allen hits the three-pointer to force Game 7. Is a 103-100 win for Miami. Ray Allen at that point only had 6 points in the game. He had shot an abysmal, I think, 2 of 6 from the three-point line. He wasn't the Ray Allen of old, but when you needed him to step up, man, did he step up. And that 3, I remember watching that. In fact, I was at Skylar's house watching it when it happened.
I think we were
watching it when it happened, and it was beautiful. It was magical. It was majestic. It's still one of my favorite plays, and actually one of my favorite games to watch. When it comes up on like NBA TV replay or whatever, I'll always watch that game because it's so much fun to watch. Number 3 on my list goes to the 2011 inaugural Big Ten championship game, Wisconsin versus Michigan State. Wisconsin won 42-39. Russell Wilson and company lead a win against a Michigan State team led by Kirk Cousins and guys like Le'Veon Bell that had broken their heart earlier in the season on a Hail Mary. And Russell Wilson on 4th down flips a pass in triple coverage to one Mr. Jeff Duckworth to catch it. Badgers ended up sealing it. But what was the actual seal? Well, it was the punter. The punter in that game, all Wisconsin had to do was punt it. Time was out. Michigan State ends up running the punt back down to the Wisconsin 5-yard line. But hold on. Roughing the kicker on the play. Automatic first down. Wisconsin gets to kneel the ball and right off to the Rose Bowl. Eventually they lost that game. That Rose Bowl almost made my list alone, but it was a little too painful to relive against Oregon. Number 2 on my list, call it a homer, but Super Bowl 45. I was born in 98, so I never got to watch the Packers win a Super Bowl. That was the first one I got to watch him. It was a great game. They never trailed. It was awesome. And then number 1 on my list, it's a Super Bowl that's always been near and dear to my heart. It's the one that really made me fall in love with football to no end. And that actually goes to Super Bowl 43, Cardinals versus Steelers. Man, that game is still one of my favorite to watch. 21-17 Pittsburgh. Larry Fitzgerald on his touchdown to give Arizona the lead. James Harrison taking the interception 95 yards to the house. Ben Roethlisberger to Santonio Holmes in the corner to win it all. It's one of the most beautiful football games to ever watch. Kurt Warner could have done it before Peyton did, won the Super Bowl with 2 different teams. It was nice to see him kind of go out a little bit on top. Obviously, he came back for, I think, 2 more seasons after that. But that Super Bowl has always been near and dear to my heart. I've loved watching it. The storylines in there were great. And just in terms of football, it was one of the most beautiful, fun games I've ever watched in my life.
Yeah, I think that's a really great list.
The only problem with that list is I specifically said no trophy games. But other than that, I
rationalized it. Had Michigan State not won, then they wouldn't have gone to the Big Ten championship. So
true, but I specifically said
by default.
I specifically said championship games. I'll let it slide just because I absolutely love that game too. The Michigan Surrender Cobra is one of my favorite memes.
It was the championship for Michigan, so it's fine.
No, but I still, again, I said specifically no trophy games, but you put one in there.
We'll review the tape.
But it's okay. No, you can't because I said it.
We'll review the tape. If I have to edit, I'll edit.
I know you will. But no, I like it.
Don't worry, Skyra. I actually followed the rules.
Thank you. I appreciate it, bud.
So I have 2 honorable mentions before I can get to my list. The first one is the 2016 World Series, the Cubs winning their first World Series, and since the Ottoman Empire was around.
He's not wrong. That's the funny part.
Even though I hate the Cubs, I just like, they finally broke their curse. And then the other one is the 2020 NCAA Men's Basketball Championship. Wisconsin wins its second ever championship in basketball. That was awesome. All right, so
you're talking. Okay, I get you now. That took me a minute. The simulated championship against BYU that we won. Yeah, that was great.
Yep, it was amazing. All right, so at number 5, I have Super Bowl 45, Steelers versus Packers. I was a little too young to remember all the details, but it's dear to my heart to
I remember all of it.
Yeah, I know you do. To see the Packers win a Super Bowl, the only part I really remember is Jordy getting clocked by Troy Polamalu and still holding on to it in the end zone.
That was Greg Jennings, actually.
Oh, yeah, Greg Jennings, sorry. But, yeah, number 4, I have the 2019 College Football National Championship, Clemson versus Alabama. Oh. I'm always down for seeing Clemson for Alabama getting their shit rocked, and Trevor Lawrence did it in such a fantastic way. Love it. Number 3, Super Bowl 52. The Eagles exercising their demons in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. We got the awesome play that is the Philly special. I will always remember that. And then seeing Tom Brady try to pull it off and can't do it. And number 2, Super Bowl 49, Patriots versus Seahawks. I think that's the best Super Bowl I've ever seen. It was such a close game, and then that moment where Malcolm Butler makes a career for himself, making that interception. And then number 1, even though it sucks so much to think about, the 2015 NCAA Men's Basketball Championship, Wisconsin versus Duke. The only reason why it's my number 1 is because I was actually at that game, so it's nice to say that I was there.
So my only thing that I'm going to fire back on is, how can you put the 2019 National Championship on there, but you're not going to put 2017 when fucking Deshaun Watson hits Hunter Renfrow on the last second for that touchdown?
That's a better.
To me, I love seeing Bama get their shit rocked too, but that game was so much better. The back and forth, Deshaun Watson, spinning to get a first down, single-handedly beating Bama. Man, that game was a hoot to watch.
I know it was a great game, but I just love that Clemson played the Alabama role, and Alabama was like Mercer in that game, and that's why I love it so much. Fair. That's why I like it. But yeah, the other one is awesome. Hunter Renfrow, who's played since the game was born,
since the Ottoman Empire existed.
Yes.
I will say the Cubs. I kind of forgot about the Cubs doing that because they've actually been pretty good the last couple of years. So it didn't register on my radar. But one of my teachers was a Cubs fan, and I was in his class when I was in his class when they won, and he was hungover the next day because he was so happy. But I remember being with Brady when the Cubs and the Cleveland were playing, and he was so pissed that they were winning that game because you desperately wanted the Cubs to lose.
I wanted Cleveland to win because LeBron and the Cavs won the championship that year, and I wanted Cleveland, who had gone forever without a championship, to win 2 in 1 year.
Yeah.
And also just because I'm not a massive baseball fan, but I viscerally hate the Cubs. And that's just like Illinois prejudice. I'll call it what it is. But I wanted nothing more than the Cubs to come down from 3-1 in that series and then lose. Just to watch the heartbreak,
Well, to be fair, they haven't been that great since that World Series.
True.
They haven't. They're still but that I think that has more to do with the NL. I feel like that has more to do with the NL Central upping its game as just a division than the Cubs being
Thank
horrible.
you, Christian Yelich.
Well, yeah, for mine, number 5, I have the 2016 Final Four, specifically that championship game, Villanova versus North Carolina. They were obviously the 2 best teams in college basketball at that point. Nobody had really stopped them from reaching that game, and the fact that we got 3 buzzer beaters back to back to back at the end of that game. That was just fun to watch. Honestly, it's everything what people want in basketball. Really, two really good teams, buzzer beaters, massive 3-point shooting. I had to put it in there. It's one of my favorite just college basketball Final Fours to watch. Number 4, just because I don't know why, but I like national team soccer, the 2018 World Cup. France versus Croatia. I know I'm probably the only person that actually watched the game on this.
Oh man,
Probably.
I forgot about that when Croatia made that run, dude.
Yeah, Croatia was a huge underdog. It was their golden generation of soccer players, which just means because they only play every 4 years, you get like maybe 2 or 3 chances with your guys to make it, and they went really far. Kylian Mbappe is a great player. He was 18 at that time when he was playing. He was younger than me at that time, which makes me feel very inadequate as a person. And for him to play amazingly in that game, I think France won 3-1, and France hadn't won in a while. So it was just nice to see. I mean, either team that won, Croatia or France, it was just great. The World Cup that year was amazing. As a person that likes the World Cup, I know nobody really else watches it if the United States isn't in it. But I loved it.
I kind of feel that same way about feeling inadequate. Like this year when I watched the draft, when they're like, yeah, 21-year-old out of Alabama, and I'm just like, I'm 21 and I'm 5'8", 120 pounds. You know, I just look at him like I can grow a better beard than that guy, so fuck him.
Exactly. Number 3, the 2008 NBA Finals, Celtics, Lakers, the first super team, the Big Three, winning that finals. Paul Pierce finally getting his finals. Kevin Garnett finally getting his finals championship. His anything is possible is still amazing to watch. That was what got me into basketball. It's what made me a Celtics fan. Because just having Kobe lose, honestly, was, as much as Kobe was a great player, having him lose after winning so many made me happy. Number 2, Super Bowl 49, Patriots, Seahawks. Even though the Patriots have won 6 in my lifetime, I was 4 before that. The last time they won, so I had never got to see them win a Super Bowl. And they had lost a couple times that I had watched, specifically fucking Giants. I hate them. But I remember watching that game. I remember crying after Malcolm Butler intercepted that pass, because it was just the hate that the Patriots have been getting, saying it was the end of the dynasty. They could get to the Super Bowl but couldn't win it. And then finally they beat that team. They came from behind. Gronk got his Super Bowl. Darrelle Revis got a Super Bowl. There was just a lot of good players on that team. It was a great team to watch. And then number 1, and hands down the best Super Bowl that's ever been played, Super Bowl 51, 28-3, come back, win that game. Dante Hightower strip sack. The converted 2-point conversions, they needed to get 2 of them to send it into overtime. I think that Super Bowl is indicative of the Patriots dynasty. Just never really giving up. If there was one team that could come back from 28-3 and win a Super Bowl, it's the New England Patriots. And again, I remember sitting there at the end of the game, not talking for a good hour and a half. And if you want to see how difficult that is, listen to the podcast and ask Brady. I don't go that long without talking. That was just an amazing game in general. If it was any other team, 2 teams, and that happened, I would still probably put it at number 1, because just the sheer likelihood of coming back 28-3 and winning the Super Bowl, after the meme that was Brady trying to tackle that Falcons defensive back. So yeah, no, I have to give it that's my list, because yeah. TJ, do you have any that stick out in your mind?
I actually have a list. I've been sitting here working on one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a man of my craft.
So it's gonna be like the last baseball game I played in.
Last one I played in, I played pretty shitty, so we're not going to talk about that one. So at number 5 is the only game that I have ever watched where tears came out of my eyes after the result, and it was the Wisconsin versus Duke national championship game.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was the only series or like the entire March Madness, I never sat down for. I stood in my living room. My parents and family were in another room because I wouldn't stop bitching. And when we lost, went upstairs, cried. What a pussy! But man, that was the most emotional series I've ever watched.
I remember that, and I know Mitch talked about it too. I remember after that game was over, I went outside, and this is like January, or this is what was it? It was like early April in Wisconsin, so it was freezing. And I went outside and just like angrily cried, shot hoops for like 45 minutes. And it was so sad because I'm just like, Kaminsky! I just just throwing balls. Oh, it was so sad.
So at number 4, this was actually, I had to redo this one just because in hindsight now, but the Game 7 World Series, Nationals versus Astros, the destruction of the most hated baseball team in MLB history, to watch them lose in Houston, Game 7, knowing damn well they cheated the whole time, put the biggest smile on my face. Firstly, when they won, because I don't like the Astros. There's just something about them I didn't like before the cheating came out, and now that the cheating did come out, it tastes so good. Number 3, this will come no surprise to anybody, the 2016 Game 7 Cavs versus Warriors. The 3-1 comeback, Kyrie's clutch shot in his patent step back spot, LeBron acting like he broke his wrist on a failed dunk against Draymond, and then to see LeBron get so emotional, bringing the championship, Cleveland, this is for you. So that was something. Number 2 is the Packers 2010 Super Bowl. Nothing more needs to be said. As a cheesehead, that's just the greatest moment in our lifetime as Packer fans. And number 1, this is thinking outside the box. This is international, so I don't know if this counts, is the 2017 World Baseball Classic. United States coming through it all, hometown champs in San Diego, beating Puerto Rico, I think it was, to see Marcus Stroman do his little shimmy after every strikeout, Adam Jones robbing home runs, being almost looking like Barry Bonds out there, the way he was hitting the ball. I watched every game of that classic for the United States, and it was the best baseball I have ever watched and have not seen better baseball since. So number 1 is the World Baseball Classic 2017.
Fair. That's solid. Skylar, who is NF?
Nick Foles.
Oh, okay, whatever. Whatever, you're sorry.
Oh my gosh.
No, I think that's a solid list. There's so many games that just come to my mind when this, Game 6, Bucks Celtics, when Middleton hits the 3-pointer with 1.2 seconds left to force overtime. That was a great game. Kawhi against the Sixers, Game 7, the 4 bounces, which also new name of his shoe, which is awesome.
Is it actually?
Yeah, it's called the Kawhi. It's the New Balance. It's the New Balance 4 bounces or something like that.
My gosh.
And Rodgers hitting up Jeff Janis for those Hail Marys.
I mean, that almost made my list. Honestly, the 2015 NFC Championship game almost made my list.
Fitzgerald. I love him, but fuck him.
Yeah, honestly. There's so many games that you can think of that were just absolutely fantastic.
But I was even thinking just Final Fours, in general. Thinking back, this last Final Four, Auburn, Virginia, Texas Tech, Michigan State, those were great games by themselves too. And trying to go back and search for 5 that I could be these were 5 great ones. It was hard.
I mean, UMCB beating Virginia. Lehigh beating Duke, led by CJ McCollum a couple years ago. There's so many good games. So this was a fun list. Go ahead, TJ.
Even non-championship, but I guess regular season championship, the game 163.
Oh yeah,
Brewers versus Cubs to determine who wins the Central. It's not a championship game, but it felt like a championship game, a 1-game series.
Yeah. The whole series against the Dodgers that year was an awesome series to watch. It sucked, but it was an awesome series. You really felt like it. There's so many cool ones. So Skylar picked this list, so I come up with the next list.
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go out on a fun one here, and I'm going to say give me the top 10 sports team names that you can think of. So I'm talking about like the Kentucky Hilltoppers.
Oh,
We're
okay.
talking about whether they're cool, whether they're funny, whether they're stupid. If you can get a cool backstory, awesome. If
Wait.
you can't, go ahead.
Do they have to have been using this name currently?
No. So like Nebraska used to be called the Bug Eaters.
Bug Eaters.
That one's perfectly fine. Just any of them. Like even ones that are super cool. Like I've always loved the New Jersey Devils. Thought that was a awesome ass name. Go ahead, Mitch.
Can we do minor league baseball teams?
Any team, any sports team.
Oh boy!
If you can find a really cool Pee Wee football team that has a cool nick, I'll allow it. Any sports,
Dude.
anything at all.
The
Anything
Waukesha
at all.
Banana Splits, baby.
Oh hell yeah, man! The Milwaukee
That's my flag
Milkmen.
football.
Like there you go, dude.
Oh.
Yeah,
Top 10?
yeah. Just give me the top 10. Doesn't have to necessarily be in an order. Give me 10 if you want to order them. You can.
Ad.
No, that's a good one.
Screenshot that.
That's a good one.
Oh, I will. All right, so now we'll do just a quick update here on the Portland Lakers game. It looks like the Lakers have come back. It is 40-38 Portland right now, halfway through the second.
Yeah.
So now let's move on to our main slurp it all up entree of the day, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks last year went 11-5, ended up second in the NFC West, won the wild card game at Philadelphia 17-9, and then lost in the divisional round to Green Bay 28-23. Russell Wilson, the man who has never received a single MVP vote in his career, which makes no sense to me, 4,110 yards, 31 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Chris Carson, 1,230 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett, 82 catches, 1,057 yards, 8 touchdowns. And DK Metcalf, the rookie, 58 catches, 900 yards, 7 touchdowns. You can do that when you're built like Black Superman. Just to move on here to some free agent losses and pickups. Really not a ton of big ones. We've already touched on the Jamal Adams trade, which I'm sure we'll touch on a little bit more today. But they lost left tackle DJ Fluker went to Baltimore. Right tackle Jermaine Ifedi went to Chicago. Defensive end Quentin Jefferson went to Buffalo. And then they traded safety Bradley McDougald to the Jets. And massive pickups, Jamal Adams, obviously, came from the Jets. Greg Olsen, the tight end they picked up from Carolina. Bruce Irvin, the linebacker they picked up from Carolina. Carlos Hyde, the running back from Houston. And Brandon Shell, right tackle from the Jets. Another notable free agent loss, wasn't signed with anybody else, Jadeveon Clowney. So what kind of losses or gains stand out to you guys?
Obviously, you got to start with Clowney. He was basically their big pass rusher, and he's still in the market. I don't know. The longer he sits down there, I think there's a better chance they could re-sign him for a one-year prove-it deal to get him a better market. So he could come back. So for right now, I don't think it hurts as much. But I think that Quentin Jefferson was an underrated piece on their defensive line, and I think it'll hurt a little bit. And then for gains, getting Will Ferrell to play tight end for you, I think that's always a win.
No, you mean the drummer from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's not Will Ferrell.
Oh, you're so right. And then I know he's not getting charges against him right now, but I think Quentin Dunbar could be a really nice corner for them and help out that secondary along with, obviously, Jamal Adams, who, in my opinion, is the best safety in the league right now. So I definitely think their secondary got upgraded through Dunbar and Adams.
Yeah, see, I tend to agree. Their secondary is a little bit better. I mean, we talked about McDougall. I mean, he has more production and coverage, but I think Jamal Adams, we've all agreed, is a better player. Al Woods, I think, is an underrated loss for this team. I mean, he didn't play a ton of snaps, but when he wasn't there, he was a pretty good run stuffer. Held up that defensive line in between Clowney. Besides Clowney, he was probably one of their better defensive linemen. And then not like specific player, but how much offensive line depth they've lost this offseason is a little worrying. Again, we've all kind of agreed that their offensive line isn't good, but still losing veteran presence, losing some players, it's not a good sign that they've lost a ton of depth. Picking up Carlos Hyde, though, picking up Quentin Dunbar, Philip Dorsett, Jamal Adams, Greg Olsen, I think those are all quality pickups. I'm interested to see if Philip Dorsett can break the curse of New England wide receivers going somewhere else and playing shitty because they don't have Tom Brady to throw to them. Because, I mean,
Daniel Amendola didn't do good. Wes Welker didn't do good, and he had Peyton Manning throwing to him. Who else? Chris Hogan hasn't really done anything in Tennessee. We'll see if Philip Dorsett can break the curse because he was kind of bad in Indy, did okay with New England, and we'll see what he does afterward.
Speaking of Chris Hogan, actually just signed with the Jets, so he's now
I saw that.
completed the AFC
Yeah.
East circuit.
Yeah,
Started with
yeah.
Miami, went to Buffalo, went to New England, and now he's with the Jets.
Yeah.
Love
Let's see. Yeah, he did it before Adam Gase could. But no, we'll see. I mean, overall, I think that they built up some of their defense, like their secondary, but then they lost on that D line, and they lost against the O line. Lost pieces there, and they kind of didn't get better, at least in my opinion, and sometimes worse. So I give it like a B-, C+ right in there, because it wasn't like a bad offseason. It was just they fixed places that I think that they needed to focus on some others too.
Yeah, I mean, the gains I love. Jamal Adams is a massive pickup. Greg Olsen can get you good production. Bruce Irvin is returning to Seattle. Carlos Hyde, they add another 1,000-yard rusher to the one they already got in Chris Carson. Again, my issue, and it's an issue I'm going to hamper on with the Seahawks, is going to be that offensive line. Even though it was bad, right? DJ Fluker and Jermaine Irfetti are not great offensive linemen. Fluker started 23 of 24 possible starts in 2 seasons in Seattle. Jermaine Ifedi had 60 of 64 possible starts in 4 seasons in Seattle. When you take that continuity and you remove it, and then you're going to throw a guy like Brandon Shillen, who started 17 games in 4 seasons, that's a massive question. Dwayne Brown isn't getting any younger, and he's coming off a torn ACL. Justin Brent isn't getting any younger. There's Mikey. Britt's gone. Yeah, no, you're right. Mikey Iupati, another one. That offensive line has massive question marks. And I was really surprised with some of the talent in the offensive line free agency and draft this year that Seattle didn't invest in it.
Right.
And again,
Isn't that surprising, though?
No, you're not. Like, I
That's
shouldn't
their
be
philosophy.
surprised. You're right. It's
throw
the
whatever
same
on
as,
the offensive line, and the chemistry is going to make them Hall of Famers. That's their philosophy.
It's the same as Green Bay with wide receivers. Like, I get it. I understand if that's the situation. But when Russell Wilson inevitably breaks his collarbone in the next 2 seasons, like I've been predicting for a while, they're going to bite themselves in the ass. He's just built different. Russell Wilson or a shark in water. Russell Wilson, he's just built different. But I mean, like the Bruce Irvin pickup, I love. I mean, he had 8.5 sacks last season. He's going to definitely help fill in that Jadeveon Clowney role at a much cheaper price. Carlos Hyde, I did not understand why Houston let him go after trading for him. It made absolutely no sense.
Because they got David Johnson, baby.
Yeah, great. So we traded a bunch of picks for Greg Olsen and Duke Johnson, and we fucking replace it with a 31-year-old who can't even lift.
He says he's going to get 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving this year.
Yeah, I mean, he might have to just for Houston to not go 0-16. But again, there's big questions on this offensive line. I understand what they want to do. They're going to want to run a multiple tight end, multiple wide receiver set, and run power football. Very similar to what San Francisco wants to do, and that's fine. The difference is that they're the antithesis of San Francisco. San Francisco has nobody at wide receiver and a great offensive line. Seattle has 2 really good wide receivers and nobody at offensive line. And so we're going to see how it's going to work out here. So let's move on to their draft here. Seattle had 8 picks. Round 1, they went Jordan Brooks, linebacker from Texas Tech. Round 2, Darrell Taylor, edge rusher from Tennessee. Round 3, Damian Lewis, guard from LSU. Round 4, Colby Parkinson, tight end from Stanford. Another Stanford tight end named Colby. Round 4, DJ Dallas, running back from Miami. Round 5, Alton Robinson, defensive end from Syracuse. Round 6, Freddie Swain, wide receiver from Florida. And round 7, Stephen Sullivan, tight end from LSU. So how do you guys grade their draft?
God damn, this is just the definition of a Seahawks draft. Their first round pick is fucking Jordan Brooks when Patrick Queen's on the board. And that's what they happened last year when they decided to take Rashad Penny over better running backs. And I just feel like it's going to bite him in the ass again. Darrell Taylor is hurt. Colby Parkinson's hurt.
Freddie Swain is hurt.
Freddie Swain is hurt.
Aren't able to play right now.
Yeah. Damian Lewis, I think he could definitely help the offensive line. He's part of that LSU offensive line. DJ Dallas, I think he could be a good change of back in that rotation. Alton Robinson looks like a project to me, and then they chose Steven Sullivan over Thaddeus Moss, which I don't get. So to me, I don't know. I guess I give it like a C minus.
Ooh, okay, fair.
See, like the problem is like I want to give this draft a bad grade if it hasn't worked out for the Seahawks in the past. Like if this wasn't like we said, this is such a Seahawks draft where we're like, why aren't you taking this player? Why are you doing this? But I'll remind everybody thought that they were crazy when they picked Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner in the same draft. And look what those two guys have done for them. So, but again, like I'll agree. I'll do try to figure out what the Seahawks did. Yeah, picking up Jordan Brooks was a weird when like even Gross Matos was on the board at that point. Darrell Taylor, again, you could have like yeah, they need edge rushing, but again, you could have gotten a better edge rusher in the first round, and Jordan Brooks would probably still be on the board when you're hitting that second round. I agree with Damian Lewis. I think getting some offense, like we've said, their offensive line needs help drastically. So spending any kind of time, effort, and energy on the offensive line, I'll applaud. We've talked about we've talked about Colby Parkinson is a version of just kind of what they will want at tight end. I don't understand DJ Dallas. Alton Robinson again, an edge rusher, sure, why not? Freddie Swain, I just think has a cool name. And I agree, Steven Sullivan, why pick up Steven Sullivan when Thaddeus Moss is still on the board? So again, like, don't like the draft. I'm going to give it a C minus like Mitch. I want to give it like an F or a D plus, but if this hadn't worked out for them in the past, which it has, so I'll give it a C minus right now and see what happens later.
Yeah, we're gonna agree completely across the board here. I also gave this draft a C minus. Nope, psych, A plus. No, C minus. The Jordan Brooks pickup made no sense to me. He was a round 3 pickup off projections, and they picked him up in the first round. I know they were really high on him, but again, just like Mitch said, this feels very Rashard Penny-esque. Darrell Taylor, back-to-back 8-sack seasons at Tennessee, pretty solid. He can help to fill in that edge rushing role. But after that, I don't like anybody else. I mean, Damian Lewis he's solid, but he's a little undersized to be a guard, and he can't play tackle, and so I'm not sold on him. Colby Parkinson, the only reason they drafted him is because he's 6'7". Like that's just, to be 100% honest. It's the same reason why teams like the Bears drafted a guy like Troutman. DJ Dallas, I don't understand why you draft him. You've already got a crowded running back room, and then you're going to add another kid into there, and it doesn't make any sense for a 4th-round pick. Everybody else is pretty much a wash for me. I think Swain could do well, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, no, I agree across the board, C minus. So let's rank this team here, and TJ, if you want to join in, you definitely can. Where do we put the Seattle Seahawks here? In or in need of a rebuild, in or in need of a reload, 8-8 tier, playoff tier, or Super Bowl caliber tier team?
I think they're definitely playoff tier just because their quarterback is Russell Wilson. We've seen the greatness he is, first ballot Hall of Famer. I think we can all agree on. They finally have some nice receivers to help him out. But obviously the thing that's keeping them from going back to the Super Bowl is that offensive line, which they actually need to address instead of just putting whatever scrubs on that line and being like, I guess if they just like play together and hold hands and be friends, they're going to be the Great Wall of Dallas. And no. And then their defense is obviously the ashes of the Legion of Boom. They're slowly building it up with pickups like Jamal Adams, the Griffin twins, and stuff like that, but they need to keep working on it. But yeah, those two things are really hindering this team at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be, as much as I hate to say it, as long as Pete Carroll is there and as long as Russell Wilson is their quarterback, they're going to be a playoff team because, I mean, even when they went 7-9, they still made the fucking playoffs. So and so there's that. They're gonna find they're a scrappy team. They're gonna keep fighting. The offensive line will find some way to block for 2.3 seconds so Russell Wilson can throw the ball. Yeah, I'm just a little worried with how every other team in the NFC West is going for their defensive line and building those up. How that's going to affect, or just the defensive linemen we already have in the NFC West, like Aaron Donald, Nick Bosa, and how that affects Seattle's chances of making the playoff. But again, as long as Russell Wilson's there, as long as Pete Carroll's the head coach, I don't see anything stopping them from at least contending.
TJ, what do you think about the Seahawks?
I mean, I'm not the biggest football guru in the world compared to you guys, but I think anybody could see the Seahawks are a playoff contender for as long as Russell can stay as athletic and healthy as he can. He's just such a dominant quarterback, as along with having Pete Carroll, who they've been working with each other for so many years now. It's almost like they're almost like the Brady Belichick of the NFC, but without the reins. Just their cohesion with each other, with their ability to understand each other and know what needs to be done, how to get to the playoff, how to win. That they're always going to be in a playoff contention. Maybe not always a Super Bowl contention, but they're always a scary team, especially as a Packers fan. When going into the playoffs, they're always a team you're keeping an eye on, even if they're 8-8 or 13-3. Like you just always fear the Seahawks when it comes to their ability to score the ball and win games. So playoff contention easy.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't a sleeping Seattle team. Remember, they had the chance to actually clinch the 1 seed with only a couple of games left, but ended up a few inches short against the Niners. I put this team as a playoff team by association. This team feels very like 2017, 2018 Green Bay Packers, where we're kind of getting towards the end of what we think Pete Carroll can actually do here. The same way that we kind of got towards the end of the McCarthy thing and we were finding excuses to keep him around. The drafts are starting to get really, really questionable. The production isn't there. They're good enough to get you to the playoffs, but they're not good enough to get you that much further, right? This team barely beat Josh McCown and the Seahawks and the Eagles in that first round of the playoffs, and that means barely. Had Carson Wentz played that whole game, Philadelphia absolutely wins. And then against Green Bay, yeah, the score was 28-23, but it wasn't as close as it looks. I mean, the Smith brothers feasted on them in the background. The Green Bay offense was a little bit more of the issue there. Questionable drafts, great pickup in Jamal Adams, but the questions are starting to compound. I think that this is a good playoff caliber team, but my issue is that now that we're seeing teams like the Cardinals and the Niners in their own division steadily increase, how long can Seattle keep up with the rest of that division? So let's move on to our season predictions here. I have the Seattle Seahawks going 10-6. I have them going 3-3 in division. I think they're going to split the series across the board. I think they're going to pull one out against the Niners, and then they're going to drop games to the Cardinals and to the Rams, mostly because the Cardinals have won in Seattle, I think 5 of the last 7 times. Seattle has played really well in Arizona, but not at home against Arizona. And as long as Aaron Donald is there, I mean, he's going to feast off of Russell Wilson the way that he has in the past. The Seahawks looked terrible in the game in Los Angeles last year, and a large portion of that was Aaron Donald. I'm going to say 10-6. That's good enough for the playoffs, but barely. And second place in the NFC West.
All right, so for me, I have the Seahawks going 13-3.
Jesus Christ.
It's an easy schedule if you look at it. The biggest surprising win will probably be splitting with the 49ers just because of how dominant they are and how I predict them going in the earlier episode. But I think just because of how the Seattle and the 49ers have been for the past decade, I think they're going to split it with each other. And then the surprising loss is splitting with the Cardinals. Like we said, they're a rising team, and I think, DeAndre Hopkins obviously accelerated the timeline. And then for playoff-wise, I have the Seahawks taking the 5th seed in the NFC, and then they would be the 2nd in the West.
I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to fight them. They definitely have a cakewalk of a schedule, but if you look at how bad this offensive line is, having to play the Rams twice, having to play the Niners twice, having to play Philadelphia, who's improved, having to play Washington, who's improved, having to play Buffalo, who's a good defense, having to play New England. I don't see how this team goes 13-3. Maybe 13-3 if they win a bunch of those games. I don't see how this team goes 13-3. I don't understand it, but hey, it's your season, it's your prediction. We'll prove you wrong when the season's over.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna go to my season because that makes my brain hurt.
Whatever, Joe. Oh, whatever.
So we talk about one game where it's a 50-50 shot as to who wins, and you're saying Seattle's gonna go 13-3. I'll give Skyler flack because he actually had Cincinnati with a winning record. That's fine. But Seattle going 13-3, come on, Mitch. Anyway,
Wait,
Skyler,
okay.
You're predicting.
I have them going one game better than Brady. I have them going 11-5. For me, but they go horrible in division. They go 2-4 in division. They split the series with both San Francisco and Arizona. They get swept by the Rams and solely based off the fact that Aaron Donald is on the Rams. Because if the most dominant interior lineman that we've ever seen play the game, and I can say that pretty comfortably. Nobody has been able to rush the passer from the interior like Aaron Donald. Even though Russell Wilson's a great quarterback, their run game. Carlos Hyde is injured. Rashard Penny got COVID, and he hasn't really lived up to expectations since he's been at Seattle. So they don't have a run game to speak of.
Yeah, they do. Chris Carson.
Okay.
Don't sleep on him.
I won't. But what I'm saying is that I don't think it's enough at this point. I also have them losing to Minnesota because I think Minnesota can use the weapons that they have in order to exploit the fact that Pete Carroll doesn't want to run any other defense but base 4-3 defense. So there's that. And then I think Arizona can win because it can split the series because they're getting better defensively and one of the scariest offenses in football now, especially in that passing game. And with them being an air raid offense and having Nuke Hopkins now, that's scary. But I agree.
If Cliff Kingsbury invested in his team the way he invested in his house on draft night, then this Cardinals team will be
He
fine.
specifically said he wanted to show off. Like he really wanted to show off, which I kind of love. But no, I agree.
Nike's house.
No.
Bill Belichick's house looked like a fucking cabin in
no, it was
Toma, Wisconsin.
No, it was literally it was literally a cabin in Nantucket. That is literally where he was at on an island in the middle of the ocean. That's where Bill Belichick holed himself up for a draft, and I love it because it's a Bill Belichick move. But anyway, I have him going 11-5. Splitting the series with San Francisco because they always play San Francisco really well. Basically winning against everybody else. Losing 4 games in division, which I think is going to be the roughest part of their schedule. But that's good enough for the 6th seed and second in the West. So.
All right, fair. So now let's move on to our hero and our what a putts. Hero of the episode, we highlight a person, a team, somebody who did something good or funny or whatever it might be that really just kind of stood out to us. I wanted to give a shout out to one Mr. Alex Smith. Alex Smith fully cleared to play after a miserable, gruesome injury against Houston back in 2018, I think. Is when it actually was. He's been fully cleared to play. He'll be back, and Ron Rivera said as long as he's fully healthy, there's a quarterback competition, and that might be the best thing for Dwayne Haskins. But my actual hero goes to Mr. Mike Vrabel, and that was in response to the Seattle corner bringing in the lady to the hotel that he got cut for, right, or that he ended up getting cut from the team for. And in response to that, Mike Vrabel said, and I quote, now remember that this kid tried to play her off as a corner for the Seahawks. And Mike Vrabel's response was
that ugly?
I don't know, but Mike Vrabel's response was, my first response to that is I hope she wasn't the size of an actual NFL football player. And I think that is comedy gold. I think that's so funny. So Mike Vrabel gets my hero with a massive shout out to Alex Smith for he almost had gangrene in that leg. He had, I think, 17 surgeries, they said. It was a terrible injury, and if you watch the replay of it, it's disgusting to watch. But he's my hero.
Does Verbrugge have room to talk after what we saw at his draft
Okay,
room?
but his draft room was the funniest shit. Like, the dude obviously taking a crap in the corner with the door open was the funniest, most, like, Tennessee hick thing that I've ever seen in my life.
Weren't they wearing, like, costumes, too?
Oh, yeah, a few of them were in costumes. He had, like, a big Tennessee flag behind. It was so funny. It was comedy gold.
All right, so my hero for the episode has to go to the LA Lakers, and I'm sure you guys heard this, but if they are able to beat the Portland Trailblazers, they're going to wear the Black Mamba jerseys in honor of Kobe Bryant. So salute to them for honoring, one of the greatest Lakers to ever play.
Just another reason to root for the Trailblazers. Skyler!
I just like to preface before I go that Mitch told all of us that if we picked his hero or Putz, he was going to throw a temper tantrum. And I really wanted Brady to pick the Lakers right before.
I almost thought about it.
I know. Okay, my hero is Yusuf Nurkic. Because after his grandmother died, he does the play-in and then goes 20-20. I mean, me and Brady can speak for it, but losing a grandma that's rough, honestly. And the fact that he wasn't there, and then went in and played his fucking heart out. He deserves hero for that. Because you can't, the emotional toll that had to be, and to piss off no play his best for his team. He deserves. That's my hero. So.
All right.
TJ, you got a hero?
A hero? I do have a hero.
Is it me?
His name is Ramon Lorano, for charging the Astros dugout after telling their pitcher how to throw a pitch. Firstly, that is the biggest troll move of all time. The guts on that guy is awesome. Then to go to first base, look at the dugout, draw at a guy, and 1v20 them. I applaud that guy's cojones to go at grown men like that, take them all on. He did get his ass kicked. I'll say he got absolutely destroyed, but that's my hero. I'm going to do that on Saturday.
All right, so now let's move on to our What a Putz. This is the absolute opposite of What a Hero, where we highlight a team, a person, a moment where just absolutely boneheaded. We thought it was hilarious. Mine goes to Mr. Nigel Bradham. Nigel Bradham, who won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles, then signed with the Saints and said, and I quote, "New Orleans is definitely a different type of environment. The last two organizations I went to," remember he was with Buffalo and then Philadelphia, "it wasn't really a winning organization. After winning a Super Bowl with the Eagles, going to the playoffs each of the last 4 years, it wasn't really a winning organization." Shut the fuck up, dude. Like, I'm not a big fan of the Eagles as is, but, like, put a little respect on them for what Doug Peterson has done. And then you're going to go to the Saints, who, great, they're a winning organization, but can't get past the first round of the playoffs. Like, fucking eat a dick, dude.
I don't know. He has a point.
I mean, I can understand it if you went from Buffalo in, like, 2014 to New Orleans, but, like, Philadelphia consistently does whatever it takes, literally whatever it takes to get into the playoffs. That's why they invest in the backup quarterback position. That's why they invest in –
Yeah, but he went from Buffalo, which has been shit, to, like, pre-Peterson, and then, like, towards the end of it, he wins the ring, and then he's out, and then he's with the Saints.
Dude, he won the ring in 2017. He had 2 more seasons with Philadelphia where they went to the playoffs. He showed up in Philadelphia in 2016, which was a year after Peterson got hired. So he had 1 bad year with Peterson, goes to the playoff the other 4 years, and then throws a fucking hissy fit about it. Like, the dude
did he really throw a hissy fit, or he just being truthful?
No, it's not truthful because it's not true.
They've only been great the past 3 years.
And he's been there all 3 years. How can you say it's not a winning organization when 3 out of the 4 years he was there, they went to the playoffs and won a Super Bowl?
Okay, but for the other 17 years they've been in an organization this century, they've been shit.
But he hasn't been there for 17 years.
I know, but I'm just saying, you can't be a winning organization if you're only good for 3 years. Because there would be a ton of organizations.
You forget that 2 years before Peterson got hired, the Eagles were in the NFC Championship game against Arizona. You forget that a couple years before that, they were in the Super Bowl against New England. Like they were perennial playoff team with Andy Reid there. They
How'd
had
that
one
work out
bad.
for them?
Do you still consider that? Do you still consider a perennial playoff team a winning organization? Because if you don't, then there's no reason for him to be talking about New Orleans.
He's got a point.
So,
I don't know.
Mitch, Skyler, who's your putts?
By the way, my
Alright.
putts is Kenny
Alright.
Clark. I love Kenny Clark.
Clark.
That I love him to death. He's really funny. I love the TNT like basketball show in general. The guy, but during the bubble when he was trying to race the other commentators to the like replay machine and almost lost to Charles Barkley. That's kind of disgraceful. And then Draymond Green comes in and without like a beat just kicks his ass. And he's named Kenny the Jet. Or not Kenny Clark, Kenny
Smith?
Yeah, Kenny
Yeah.
Smith.
Kenny.
Yeah.
I was like, why the fuck did you
No, not
follow
Kenny Clark.
Kenny Clark?
No, Kenny the Kenny
so
the Jet
confused.
Smith. Kenny the Jet Smith. Like his name is the
Yeah.
Jet. Like he
Yeah.
should be. Like even if he is old, he's been a while since he's played some basketball. He should still have some quick pickup, but he almost lost to Charles Barkley, guys, and that's not even a far run. Like
I mean, yeah, that guy's nickname is the round amount of rebounds. So.
exactly. So like just like that's rough, man.
I don't know. It's probably karma for him.
It
All right,
is a
so
little.
I have two putzes this week. First,
my
I'm going to start with the silly one. The first is LeBron James for that god-awful Toon Squad uniform he just put out. My God, is it ugly. That is just trash. I might not even watch Space Jam 2 just because of those god-awful uniforms.
Should we do a Space Jam 2 live stream?
That would be amazing. But this is another reason why Michael Jordan is the GOAT, and he's not. All right, so for the serious one, it came out as we were recording, but Masai Ujiri's legal team finally released the body camera footage of the encounter that happened in Oracle with the police officer. And when you watch the footage, yeah, the cop just basically, like, Masai came up to him, and then the cop just, like, starts shoving him for no fucking reason at all. It's a really bad look. It makes no sense why the cop decided to sue Masai. He did nothing wrong. So shame on the cop who's suing Masai Ujiri for that bullshit.
Well, yeah, and that was right after the Raptors had won the championship. Like, wasn't he
Yep.
trying to get down to the court?
Yeah, he was trying to get to his team after
Yeah.
they just won their first championship.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. No, I understand that. TJ, do you by chance have one?
I've got two.
You got two. All right, hit
One-
me.
Ooh.
One of them's a bit of a lesser note just because it's a few days old, but
That's okay.
also the first one goes up to Rob Manfred for dropping Joe Kelly's suspension after the A's-Astros brawl from 8 games to 5 games. The fact that there's still a suspension for Joe Kelly for doing, in a sense, nothing wrong. He didn't hit anybody, wasn't warned, wasn't ejected, didn't fight anybody, just went.
Yeah.
And he got suspended, but all those Astro players are fine, so whatever. Rob Manfred is the worst commissioner in the history of sports. But my main one goes out to Chris Woodward, the manager for the Texas Rangers, for saying Tatis Jr. is like hitting a grand slam up. What were they? 7-0, 10-0.
It was like
Hitting a
10-3 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hitting a grand slam is Bush League pretty much, and it's an unwritten rule that you really shouldn't do that, especially in a 3-0 count. Granted, he is now managing a team that beat the Baltimore Orioles back in 2010, I believe, 30-3. So the irony that if he was for any other team, I wouldn't bring that up, but the fact that it's the Rangers, you beat a team 30-3, and the face of the MLB hits a grand slam, what's he supposed to do? Take a strike? Grow up, dude. You play baseball.
Yeah. I mean,
Why'd you pick him over his own manager, though? Because his own manager said it was a shitty call and he should have done it. I think that's more putsy than the opposing one.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
fuck the Texas Rangers. If you look at their new stadium, it's a fucking can opener. It's dog
You're not
shit.
wrong. You're not wrong.
No.
Like I have like a visceral reaction to, because it's like I was rewatching Last Chance U, right, in the early seasons where they're talking about like the coach runs up the score. It's like, if you don't want him to run up the score, fucking stop him. Like,
Yeah.
me and Mitch played at Waukesha South. We lost 49-0 several times throughout our career, okay?
We were dominant before high school, though.
Yeah, we were Super
I
Bowl
love
level.
game.
Well, we had pretty good teams before high school.
Yeah, it's just once they got there. So, but
Yeah.
it's like the whole thing comes
It's called
down.
the Roosh effect.
Yeah, exactly. I remember like sitting in with the coach, and they're like, you hate when that happens, right? And we lost like 48-7, and he's like, then stop them. Like, if you don't want to get blown out, stop the other team. Put a little bit more effort in there. You're gonna get mad at a guy for hitting a grand slam when you loaded the bases and you gave him a 3-0 count. Like, come on, fuck off. No, I completely agree, TJ. That shit's ridiculous.
You're a professional athlete. You're getting like you're the top of the top players in the league, and you're telling me you're going to get butthurt by a future Hall of Famer already. I'm going to say it. Tatis Jr. is going to be a Hall of Famer, but he hits a grand slam, and you're going to bitch at him for doing that.
Yeah, that's.
He didn't bat flip. He didn't do anything disrespectful, which bat flipping is. Those are just pitchers being soft, whatever, not athletes. And so, like, just grow up. Be a man. You're in a professional sport. Don't be a pussy.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you listen to any post-game press conference with any player when they get blown out, they're like, hey, that's on us. Like, that's exactly what it is. You know, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. So, gentlemen, before we do just a brief wrap-up, are there any talking points? At the half, Portland is on top of the Lakers by a point. On the next episode, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about another couple of games. I'm going to be gone here for the next couple of days, so our next episode recording won't be till next Tuesday. So there'll be we'll have game 2 and 3 for a lot of those series that we would have gotten to. Nearly to game 4 for a couple of them. But before we do just a brief wrap-up, gentlemen, is there anything else we wanted to touch on?
Yeah, each day that goes by, the Big Ten looks worse and worse.
Yes, that report did came out that the report
Penn
that
State.
the Big Ten used to claim heart failure was a flawed report. And that's partially on us as well because we reported on it as well. So we'll keep posted.
Did you see what the Penn State AD said though?
No.
So that he doesn't
He
even
said
know
he wasn't even sure if there was a vote that happened.
Yeah.
Really?
Big Ten, Kevin Warren could have just been pulling the decision out of his ass for all he knows.
Yeah. Well, and that's not good because it's supposed to be between the presidents.
Yeah.
That are voting on it.
So
just real quick, again, I'm going to keep harping on it until the 9th because that's when the draft is. If you'd like to join our fantasy football league, we have now put the link in both our Twitter and our Facebook. And we have 2 people that have already joined. If you have joined, awesome, because we don't know who you are. we're like, okay, cool. But it very blatantly says Sports String Sports Podcast, so I feel like people would know that it's ours. TJ, you're more than welcome to join if you'd love to.
Already in it, baby.
Yeah, he's in
Oh,
it.
you're one of the 2.
Already in it.
Yeah, he's Fafi or whatever.
Okay. Well, then the other person, thank you
Yeah,
for
the Green
joining.
Bay fan. Or
The
whatever it's called.
other person, thank you for joining. We currently have 6 slots open. If somebody would like to join, but I can extend it again to however many people want to join. You have until September the 9th because that's when we're doing our draft.
That's when we kill. All right, so then we appreciate everybody for tuning in. On the next episode, we're going to be talking about the Tampa Bay Gronkaneers. I feel like it's an episode that we've been waiting for a really long time. After that, we have Tennessee, Washington, and then the NFL is wrapped up. This has been a journey. Seattle is the 29th team we've covered. We got teams 30, 31, and 32 here wrapping up. We've got the remainder of the NBA playoffs. I'm sure TJ is going to be on a couple of times here while we talk about the NBA playoffs. TJ, we want to wish you the best of luck in your playoffs here for your baseball team. We're rooting for you. Go Rebels.
Better be Buster Posey out there.
Yeah, right.
Well, trust me.
Anything less than 4 for 4 grand slams just doesn't count.
I can hit it out of the infield.
But follow us on everything. We appreciate everybody already does, but keep following us on stuff. Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Reddit, the whole 9 yards, and email us.
OnlyFans is coming up.
Yes, correct. Yeah. fourthstringsp@gmail.com. FOURTH stringsp@gmail.com. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Everybody have a fantastic time and go Bucks.